Good afternoon, good evening all.
Good evening.
Yeah, it's nice to have all of you here this afternoon, this evening, whether you are in US or in Nigeria. We have gathered to have a panel discussion on the theme church and state, policy making in Nigeria. So not to waste so much of our time, I would hand over to the moderator of this panel discussion and the person of Father Anyedi Okure. Father Anyedi Okure is the general promoter of justice and peace for the Dominicans in Nigeria and for the Dominicans in the whole world. And he's the permanent delegate of the Dominicans to the United Nations. So with this, we welcome him that he may anchor this section. Welcome, Father.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, everybody. Let me also add my voice by saying welcome to all of you. Thank you for taking the time to be here. We are dealing with the topic church and state and policy making with a focus on Nigeria. So the relationship between religion and the state is a long-time discourse and a timely one for Nigeria, given Nigeria's current political debate and campaign for elections. Among Christians and Catholics in particular, we often hear the expression, politics is dirty, implying that one who is clean, so to speak, should have nothing to do with politics. Yet, the same people seem to forget that they are impacted by policies enacted by the so-called dirty politicians. So what exactly does this mean when people say that there should be separation of religion and the state? When in reality, believers are also citizens. Sorry, may I ask people to mute, please mute, if you are not speaking, please mute yourself. Okay. So in fact, believers are also citizens of the state. The question is, can we separate people from themselves? Put differently, can we separate the believer from herself or himself as a citizen? Of course, the answer is obvious, no. So today is the call for separation of religion and the state implies a statement against a theocracy, a call for religious freedom for all faith communities where each is treated equally without one religion being imposed on the others. And within the Catholic Church, the church insists that religious leaders should not be bedfellows with politicians so that they can freely exercise their prophetic role in society and call politicians to order when they stray. Examples abound. We know where religious leaders who are bedfellows with politicians are seriously compromised in their prophetic ministry. However, we see on the other hand that Islam does not make the distinction between religion and the state. In fact, the economy, the politics, religion are all one. And so within Islam, political leaders are seen as judges, they are seen as legal experts, they are seen as religious leaders. And very often, Islam presents itself as a transnational religion. So the question is, in a multi-religious state like Nigeria, what should be the role of believers in shaping the policy that governs them? How do we explain to citizens that they have an obligation to participate in policy making without enforcing their faith over others. And finally, Catholic social teachings point out that citizens of the state must ensure that their governments live up to their primary responsibilities, which are, I highlight the 4 big ones or 5 big ones. One, to ensure that state policies are made in consideration of the common good of all. Secondly, that the government should guarantee equal opportunity for all. Third, that policy making must consider the most vulnerable members of the society, and that they should protect and defend the lives of its citizens from danger. And we know what is happening with Nigeria in that regard. And government should guarantee the principles of subsidiarity. That is, to ensure that a higher power does not arrogate to itself the functions of a lower body. So with that in mind, we ask further questions. How can this be achieved if citizens are not involved in governance? Today, we have an outstanding panel to enlighten us on this issue in relation to Nigeria, especially given the current political discourse, the election campaigns, and the divergent personality of candidates persuading Nigerians to vote for them. Each of the panelists is well accomplished in her or his own right. And if I were to elaborate on the accomplishment, believe me, it will take more than the duration allotted to the seminar to introduce them. So in the interest of time, I will make 1 or 2 sentences about each of them. I start with Professor Adenike Emeke. He's a professor of guidance and counseling and director of the Institute of Education at the University of Ibadan. She's also the president of the Provincial Council of Lay Dominicans in Nigeria. Our second panelist, Attorney Femi Falana, who is a distinguished attorney, a senior advocate of Nigeria, and a human rights advocate. He is known for his passionate and sustained opposition to the oppression of peoples. And we have Holy Child's sister, Professor Teresa Okure, who is Professor of Scripture and Gender Hermeneutics. She is the president of the Catholic Biblical Association of Nigeria, a mentor to scholars globally on scripture, gender, and African issues. Just this week, actually 2 days ago, she was honored with a first script, that is a commemorative publication celebrating her accomplishments as a scripture scholar. And you can search for the book. Is titled Biblical Approach to Mission and Context, with contributions from her colleagues from all over the world. And finally, we have the Reverend Father Dr. George Ehusani, who is the Executive Director and Lead Faculty of Luke Stella Leadership Foundation. He's also the founder and faculty member of the Psycho-Spiritual Institute based in Abuja. And if I may add, he once served as the Secretary General of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria. So thank you, the 4 panelists, for accepting to be here. Here is going to be the process. Each panelist will make an opening remark. Then we'll come back for a second round for each panelist to make a remark. There will then be interaction with participants, and each panelist will then give a closing remark. Then I will consider my work done and hand it over to the organizer, Brother Fred Obanaya. And I'm begging participants, please, if you are not speaking, mute yourself so that there is no echo and cross communication. And I'm also asking the participants to please in your remarks, if the panelists, if someone before you has made the point that you want to make, please repeat it, say it again. It will not be redundant. You say it again for emphasis sake. So please. Okay. I threw in some lots, and the first lot fell on Professor Adenike. So the question here is, we are talking about church and state. How can we, in what ways can we get citizens to participate in policy making in Nigeria without imposing a theocracy? And I'm going to ask the same question to all the panelists. So please, Prof. Adenike.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good evening, Father Anyedi. Good evening, my co-panelists. Good evening, everybody who is online. I want to start by saying thank you for bringing me onto this panel. And let me also say that I bring you greetings from two major groups that I represent here tonight. One, my family, my husband, my children, some of them are also online. And then also the lay Dominican fraternities, in Nigeria and Ghana, which is as part of the introduction, I'm the president, current president of the lead Dominican fraternities in Nigeria and Ghana. Now, to the question, Father, I will put it this way. I'll start by asking this way, that should Christians, should the church be involved in state policy making? And my honest answer will be an unequivocal yes. Yes, that the church should be involved in state policy making. And then we can also ask another question. What should be the role of the church in state policy making? And I would say that, to me, the major role should be that the church should engage mechanisms by which it will speak into policy, speak into structures, speak into things that are going on around it, and then, in such a way, be involved. And I want to say that for the church to be involved, probably 2 or 3 major things the church should do. One, it should have its own policy with which it will form people. And through that, the people that are formed, through its own policy, will now be, should be well-rounded people, should be well-informed people, who will now go into state policy, politics, and be involved in it, because the church as an organization should not be involved in politics or in partisan politics, because different members of the church will belong to different parties, and the church should serve like a parent, to all the members. And so for that reason, shouldn't be involved as an organization in partisan politics, but it should be able to encourage its members to be involved in partisan politics. And if, like I said, it has its own well-rounded, robust policy by which it forms people, then those people, will now be able to go into politics and, influence what is going on, in politics. And so the church should also be able to interface with those that are in politics. That is, do not leave them aside. Do not leave them alone. When you've encouraged them to be part of politics, to be involved in politics, then don't leave them alone. Still continue to interface with them. I remember some time ago, late Bola Ige, was a member of this, I think, student Christian movement or something. And then when he was in politics, in active politics, some of his members said, oh, it's disappointing us, and all that. And, he said to them, how long ago have you left me? What kind of fellowship have you had with me? What kind of, involvement have you had, to say, oh, these are some of the Christian tenets that you should be pushing or should be promoting, as you are there in politics. So the church should continue to engage, its members who are there. And then aside of that, the church should have some form of ways or mechanisms or strategies by which it would also, speak into what is going on. The church will never be quiet, about anything. And we find that actually, you find times when the church speaks up on, issues that are going on within the state. For example, the Catholic Bishops Conference of Nigeria, from time to time, issues, communicate. Sorry? Did you say something? Okay, issues communicate, on burning issues that are going on in the society. And I think this is the kind of thing that we should be doing. And the church should be involved, in politics or in state-making policy. And when these policies are made, everybody should be conscientized to speak out, to say something. So it shouldn't, members of the church too should not look up to the church just as an organization to say something or to be involved in, in policy making. In all the places where we are as citizens, as members of the church, as Christians, we should speak up, we should be involved, we should take part, and we should ensure that when we see obnoxious policies in place, we speak out to correct them. And even before obnoxious policies come into place, we should be involved in even promoting and pushing forward some, clear ways of which we want, or things that we want to be involved, to be implemented or to be embedded into policies. So there's a whole wide range of, activities that members of the church can be involved in. And so I would say that we should be involved in politics. We should be involved in policy making. We should ensure that we are speaking out. We should ensure that we also understand, some of the policies that are made. Because if we do not read about these policies and understand them and read between the lines, we may be losing some points. For example, when policies that have to do with families, and marriage and things like that, we should be able to read between the lines, because we have all sorts of things that are going on now where policies are being, put forward that is against what the church believes. For example, the church, Father Anyedi talked about a separation of powers. Yes, I believe strongly in that too. But aside of that, there should also be cooperation. But first of all, each entity should ensure that it understands its own state and its own, where it belongs, and what kind of jurisdiction it has. For example, the state has no business enforcing that gay people should be wedded in the church. That is not within its own jurisdiction. If the church says this is against my policy, this is against the tenets of our religion, so be it. It shouldn't be enforced. To say you must wed gays, as we are saying now. In the same way, the church should also not, raise a protest if the state prosecutes somebody who evades tax, for example, because that is what belongs to the states to execute and prosecute. And so there must be this understanding, that we have our limits, but we should work together. I believe that there should be cooperation, and it is only in the cooperation that the church and the state has that we can have a society that would help us, to really be who we are and be able to live, within the society as humans, and as also Christians. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll come back to you for a second round. I
think we should tell her that her video wasn't on so that she will work on it.
Her what?
That's pro.
Yes, her
video wasn't shown.
Okay. Sorry, is Mr. Falana here yet? I haven't seen him.
He will soon join.
Okay.
He just called that he will soon join.
Okay. So in the meantime, let me go to Father Husani.
Father Husani, no nonsense, Father. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We don't, okay.
Yeah. I would just want you to see me. I'll put off my video because of network. My network is weak, so I would take the video off so that we can optimize the network for the moment. Yes, thank you for inviting me to be part of this encounter on the church and policy making. I would actually say that the church has some way been involved, except that our involvement is grossly inadequate. Our involvement as church is grossly inadequate. The teaching of the church concerning separation of church and state, just as Father Enyedi explained, I'm distracted. Can they put up?
Yes, please, I ask everybody else except the speaker, please mute your phone so we don't have noise interference. Charles,
Okay,
please.
I would mute everybody now. Then those that want to speak would unmute themselves. So, Father, unmute yourself and then speak. Father George. Okay, good.
Great. So Father Nedi is right for the fact that the separation of church and state, by our understanding, does not mean the non-involvement. It just means that there should be freedom of religion and no religion should be a state religion. So the separation of church and state is to benefit everyone in that state so that all in a plural society, everyone can enjoy their religious freedom. However, we do have the social teachings of the church, which is our greatest tool for involvement. Professor was speaking about the need to train our people who would then get involved in politics. That's what the social teachings of the church are for. The church has an elaborate corpus of teachings on every area of human development, on every area of societal development, which are contained in the church's social teaching. Unfortunately, it has been called the church's best kept secret. So a lot of people are not aware, are not trained in it, but we have been speaking about this for nearly 50 years now. We've been talking about the social teachings of the church being, sadly, the church's best kept secret. We've been speaking about it for almost 50 years. There's no reason why it should continue to be the church, the best kept secret of the church. Some of you are aware that by 1996, I published a book that I call The Prophetic Church. And it was launched at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs in Lagos. And it drew a lot of press attention because it was at a difficult time like this, at the time of the Abacha regime. Now, and the whole idea was to bring out a text that could be used in seminaries, in secondary schools, in universities, to teach people about the position of the Catholic Church on several issues of the social teachings of the church, so as to prepare people, as Prof said, to be involved in policy making, in policy advocacy, and so on, in promoting the common good. Now, the challenge we have, since we have a very short time, is that in Nigeria, that intervention in state policy, the advocacy that we do in Nigeria is not properly structured. Now, by the time I was leaving the Catholic Secretariat at the end of 2006, we were discussing, Archbishop Onaikon, Cardinal Onaikon was the president at that time, we were discussing about establishing a Catholic bureau in the fashion of the Catholic bureau in Berlin, Germany, which was actually established since after the Second World War. Konrad Adenauer, the first president of post-war Germany, called for it. Now, since then, the Catholic development agencies in Germany have been pushing for that type of office in every country. And I was part of a movement to get the Bishops' Conference of African countries to set up the Catholic Bureau. Catholic Bureau is the Catholic office that interfaces between the government and the church. And you put somebody there that is highly experienced and influential, who can do the work of advocacy and lobby, who does a lot of the research. I mean, there could be 100 people in that office. They are constantly doing research as to what is going to come up in Parliament, so that they look at it from the church's prism, from a moral, ethical, religious point of view, and see if this is not going to be a good policy. They already get involved in shutting it down before it ever comes for hearing. Now, those of you who are interested, please Google Catholic Bureau Berlin, and you will see what Prelate or Monsignor Carl Houston is doing. He's been doing that for over 20 years. Now, in Africa, it has been established for the past 25 years in South Africa. And there is a priest, Father John Peter Pearson, Peter John Pearson, has been in charge for over 25 years. It's a big office, and they are involved in every area of lawmaking, of policy making, with the legislative and with the executive, to ensure that the interest of the church is taken into account. The same offices have been established in Uganda, in Tanzania, in Lesotho, in Zambia, in Malawi, in Ghana, in Zimbabwe. Nigeria failed to establish it due to reasons of pettiness. I mean, we were ready for it. I actually spent 1 year in Germany understudying the Catholic Bureau in order to come and assist in setting up in Nigeria. But somehow the leaders of the church in Nigeria dropped the idea. And between then and now, I'm talking of 2007 and now, nothing has happened. And it is out of frustration that the church is not making optimum input into policy making and advocacy and the leadership of this country. That's part of the reason why Kuka set up the Kuka Center. And I think they are doing very well in various areas, but it is an individual effort. That's part of the reason why I set up the Luke Stella Leadership Foundation. And we are doing the best we can, but it is an individual effort. This Kuka Center and my own center, I am saying now that they were established out of frustration with the fact that the Nigerian Bishops' Conference as a body, the leadership of the church as a body, were not awake to the need of having a structure like the Catholic Bureau that is already existing in several countries, where the advocacy work of the church, the policy lobby of the church, the political education of the church, of the politicians, where it can be properly structured. Now, during the next round, I'll be able to give a few more details about this, because I think my 5 minutes is going. But this in other countries, there is a structural way of doing this, which the Nigerian Bishops' Conference have not put in place or have refused to put in place. Even when Miserio, the German development agency, was ready to sponsor it, the Nigerian bishops did not accept it. So that's why we are where, that's part of the reason why we are where we are.
Thank you, Father George. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the follow-up. I now turn the microphone to Sister Teresa.
Greetings, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay,
yes,
greetings,
yes.
and it's not time to go on. I just go straight to the point. When I got this thing, you know, policy makers, I was asking myself, who makes the policy? For who and why? The people who are making these policies, to what extent are they really citizens of their country? I will come back to that. To what extent are they? We are having people making policies who shoot their way to power if it is military, who rig their way to power if it is election, rigging. And these people go there and they will make the policies to ensure that they stay on. And then the rest of us say politics is dirty, it is not our business, and we leave it at that. The church and the state I know years ago I was asked to speak on the church and the state, a dialogue in ecclesiology at the University of Louvain. I said, we cannot talk about the church and the state, the church in the state. I think Anyedi mentioned it by saying, you know, the people, the church is in the state. We are in Nigeria, we are in Ghana, we are in America. So the church operates within the state. So this separating what is inseparable is part of the problem. Because as Anyedi mentioned, in traditional African setting, there was no separation of church and state. In Islam, that much is clear. And talking about my discipline, God does not know any distinction between church and state. God knows human beings that God has created and that God wants to bring up. So that's one point. The other point is this issue of politics. I just finished making a presentation at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. They were talking about, you know, religion, ethnicity, and politics, you know, in Nigeria. And how do those three interplay? Politics, the word we are using, comes from the Greek word polis, which is city-state. And the polites was a citizen of the city-state. And that citizen had rights, responsibilities, duties, and obligations. And had a stake, something to say in what was happening. If you were not a polites, a politician in the fundamental sense of the word, you were a foreigner, allogene, somebody born from elsewhere. So, you know, they could tax you, they could do anything, but as long as you were a citizen, you had the right, the duty, the obligation to contribute to the state and for the state to contribute to you. That is not what is happening with us. And what I'm saying is, you know, in a way, we are trying to catch up with what is there, to see how we manage what is there. And I don't know whether we should think of revamping the whole system, revolutionizing this whole system. And the people to revolutionize it are the people. Just say, take, for example, what is happening now in this obedient movement. They're coming from the grassroots. They're saying we are not tolerating this anymore. The powers that be are doing everything to suppress that. But the awakening is the beginning, you know, of the liberation. The awakening is the seat of wisdom. So, you know, the first issue of building this nation is for the citizen to realize this place where you have brought us to, what your policies have brought us to, what your practices have brought us to, what your promises not fulfilled have brought us to, we are not taking it. And I think this is where the church can really play a role to raise the awareness, the consciousness of the citizens, to raise their awakening, to let them know that the country belongs to them, that they are not the foreigners, to know that these people who are in power are just a minority, catering for themselves. They have the broom, they sweep all the world to themselves. They have umbrella, they cover themselves and leave everybody else in the rain. But these people are, sorry for using this, they are labor, it's a family, it's a core unit, and they are prepared to work. So the church, I think, at this stage needs to zero in on that consciousness, on that awakening, on that consciousness. How do we guide it? How do we direct it? Not to say to fools with the politicians who are there, because they too are citizens, whether we like it or not. God's kingdom is not going to come if we still have evil men versus good and good versus evil. So I would think that that is the core thing we need to work on. And we connect with that with what is happening currently in the world. You're talking about the synod on synodality. Everybody matters. I try to listen to what God is doing in the world today. And certainly, if there is anything one can pinpoint to, is that God is awakening the masses in so many different ways to wake up and claim their place. We're talking about Nigeria and the obedient. The youth, they are out for it. But the synod on synodality is leading us in that way. So if the church zeroes in on that and tries to see how it can capitalize on that and to do the reform from the inside, from within the citizens, for them to know that the country belongs to them, that they own it. They don't check out to Dubai, check out to US, check out to, and then because somebody built that, they struggle to build that. So we go there and we live there, and then when it is good, we come back. Who's going to build it for us? They said Rome wasn't built in a day. Do we have citizens who are prepared to be ready, committed to build the city, you know, the state Think of Mandela. That crowd, what they suffered to make sure that South Africa was free. And it was free now for both the blacks and the white. So we need that kind of revolution, a spiritual revolution, a social revolution. And it will sweep everybody along. And I really think that this is where the church should focus on, evolve policies, evolve programs, evolve whatever you need. We have them in our churches, in our parishes. We can reach them. We don't have to have a rally to reach them. So we need to use the structures. They say Obi has no structure. The church has structures that nobody can match, not even the Federal Federation. How do we work within those structures? Because the people who are in politics come from those structures. That's the point. They are church people. They come from the church structures. And when they go there, they become something else because they were not who they were supposed to be as people of the church. And so, so that is it. And then the other issue is, I've mentioned synodality. We're talking about Ubuntu. We know about it, the African ethos, the African philosophy. And what they're saying, how they explain Ubuntu is that an anthropologist put a sweet there at in some distance at the tree and tell the children, you run, whoever reaches the tree first will collect the seed, the sweets and eat. And to his great surprise, this was, a non-African. To his great surprise, the children joined hands together, ran together, reached the tree, sat down and took the sweets and divided it among them. So he was telling them, what is that? He said, that is Ubuntu. How can one person be happy when the others are not happy? So these are things we need to work on and to realize that the resource for building, for transforming, not just for patching the nation, the resource lies within each individual. That each individual has to say, this is good for me. People keep saying, oh, what is good for me? What is in it for me? So you give them money, they say that is good for me. But they need to realize that receiving money and selling their birthright is not good for them. And to stand on that birthright, this is where I think the church should put its energy, and then the other issue, the prayer for the election in Nigeria, I just have it here. One of the phrases said, inspire us to vote solely for the common good of our nation, so that we may elect visionary, honest, and competent leaders with hearts that beat. I am adding this, just say that heart that beat for everyone. That hearts that beat for the welfare of each and every citizen. And and I say you inspire the heart of every citizen to beat with joy and zeal in order to be able to build a nation. So the church has a package which involves the state, which involves the politics, and which carries on. Religion, to begin with, we are Nigerians before we become, when they ask your nationality, you say you are a Nigerian. You don't say I am Christian and I'm a Muslim and I'm this. So Nigeria is the field to which we belong, which we need to cultivate together. It's my time up.
Yes.
I see your hand. Okay, so I just end there. I will come back to that. But
we'll come back.
This
yes.
is the issue.
I said we'll come back to that.
Okay, so that
yes.
is it. I ended there, but I just sum it up. We have a work to do and a field to do it, which is unique to the church, and which will influence even the policies that are made, not just how we respond to the policy. Thank you. I mentioned the Dominicans, and when it comes to my second round, I will take it up.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a distinguished Attorney Falana. Attorney Falana, please, it's your turn. Thank you for coming. So I'm throwing the same question to you, the issue of church, religion, and the state in the context of Nigeria.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm very grateful, and I'm indebted to the organizers of this program. Bishop Cooker has asked some of us not to call ourselves ex-seminarians because between ex-seminarians and ex-convicts, we may run into problems. So that we should call ourselves old seminarians, I'm happy to be in your midst as an old seminarian who couldn't make it, to the priesthood, but as I often say, Many are called, but few are chosen. So I'm happy to felicitate, with those of you who have been chosen by the Almighty God, to be servants in the vineyard of the Lord. But having said that, let me say very quickly that under the Nigerian Constitution, there's supposed to be a separation of the state and religion, between the state and religion. Section 10 specifically provides that the Nigerian state, the government of Nigeria, shall not adopt any religion as official religion, as a state religion. But what has happened is that Christianity and Islam have been adopted as official religions in Nigeria. Section 38 guarantees the right of every citizen to religion, right of conscience, right to believe in God or not to believe in God. So we have a situation in our country where in certain parts of the country, people are killed because of their religious beliefs, or people are killed for converting from one religion to the other. And most of the time, after our temporary condemnation of those who perpetrate highly, very scandalous conduct, grave offenses, once we have condemned them, then we forget and move on. The other point where our church leaders, including leaders of the Catholic Church, is engagement in a lot of hypocrisy. When some of us were growing up, political leaders attended churches in town, cathedrals, and the rest of them. And they will listen attentively to the sermons delivered by priests. Today, we have encouraged governors and the president to have mosques and chapels in government houses, official lodges of governors, where our priests go to minister unto them. And these chapels and religious centers have also become avenues for distributing contracts. We want to go to the villa to pray, as if praying in town outside the villa, God is not likely to answer you. Another area where I find disturbing is the culture of Christians asking government to sponsor them to Jerusalem, like those who go to Mecca. Nowhere in the Holy Quran is it stated that the government shall sponsor people to Mecca, either for lesser Hajj or the real Hajj itself. It is if you are able, if you are physically able, if you are also able, if you have the wherewithal, financial wherewithal to go to Mecca. It's not compulsory. From Genesis to Revelation, nowhere is it stated that Christians should go to the Holy Land. So, but we have now adopted that, every year we must run to the government, whether at Abuja or state levels, to be sponsored to Jerusalem. And once you allow public funds to be dissipated so recklessly, you're already captured by the state. It then becomes difficult for religious leaders to maintain some independence from the state, from the government, and identify with the congregation or the people in terms of demanding for their right, because the leaders have been bribed. During Christmas, during Salah and the rest of them, we receive all manners of gifts, running to billions of naira at the end of the day. Money that could have been used to provide jobs, to take care of the children of the needy. And so for me, we have allowed religion and the state to commingle. Yeah, there are priests who are trying their best. And it's not because I'm speaking to a Catholic audience. I would say, to some extent, the Catholic Church can still be counted, just to some extent, on the side of the people. And we must often wage a struggle against those who are making a mockery of the Church of Christ. All those miracle centers, fake miracle centers. The true church must speak against them. Those who are profiting, who are making money from the name of Jesus.
I think we lost him.
Jesus Christ. We must
Mr. Falano, you will need to
about
unmute
6
yourself.
billion naira.
Sorry, could you take off your video?
I'm just concluding, please.
No, I mean, could you take off your video, because that is making your signal weak.
All right. All right. And during that year, about 7 billion was also allocated for spiritual consultation of marabouts. The church must speak out against this. 2 areas where the Catholic Church has distinguished itself is the area of promoting education and the health of our people. Today, there are 20 million Nigerian children out of school. And those are children that will grow up and become likely criminal elements in the society. Terrorists, armed robbers, kidnappers, and the rest of them. This is an area the Catholic Church will have to take on the state, because it is now compulsory under the law that every Nigerian child shall be educated free of charge from primary school to junior secondary school. So this is an area that the church can lead a battle together with the progressive extraction of the civil society, so that we can take a lot of the children of the poor out of the streets and get them to be educated, because that's what the law says. So the church must link up with UBE, the Universal Basic Education Commission, and find out which state in Nigeria is not claiming the money from that agency to educate Nigerian children. In the area of health, we must stop praying for leaders who go, why the rest are allowed to die simple deaths, avoidable deaths. So we must now give ourselves some task. I must acknowledge here the enormous contribution, the enormous sacrifice paid by Justice Development and Peace Commission, the Bishop Cooker Center, and of course, the center of my very good friend, Luke Stera Leadership Foundation, run by Reverend Father George Eusan. These efforts are not enough. We must get the Catholic Church to adopt these bodies and collapse them into a national movement to fight on the side of our people, to fight on the side of the poor. And such a center will have to promote what in Latin America, in those days of dictatorship, liberation theology. During the apartheid struggle in South Africa, liberation theology. Because our theology must liberate our people from poverty, from avoidable diseases, from unemployment and poverty. I thank you very much for allowing me to make some intervention.
Thank you. Yes, I'll come and make a quick round. So this time around, I'm going to stagger it again. So I'm going to go first to Father Hussein, Sister Teresa, then in that order. And, Father Hussein, you were talking about, I was kind of shocked to hear the shutdown of the Catholic Bureau, because for 7 years, I worked at the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. And I know what we call the Department of Government Liaison, that's what we are talking about, was one of the very dynamic departments monitoring government policy, making sure they go there to sit at Congress and listen and bring information to the bishops. I'm just so sad to hear that our bishop shut that down. But could I return to you? You said you had more to say. Could you speak a little more about that? And then briefly, then we'll go to Sister Teresa. Father Hussein, please.
Okay, just once again, thank you, Sister Okure and my friend. Thank you very much for your contributions. Like I said, I'll put off the video so as to optimize the network. Now, I was saying before my 5 minutes was over, I was saying that what we lack, and towards the end of Femi Falana's address, he mentioned the need to literally consolidate this and have a proper structure that is national. And I was going to say that the Catholic Bureau I mentioned, I'm going to send the links to the organizers so that they can send to all of you. I'm going to send the links so that we can all educate ourselves on how this networking, advocacy, lobbying has been structured for the last 70 years in several countries. It is no longer just about some individual bishop's effort or some individual priest's effort. In order to make an impact in society, there needs to be a proper structure that is well funded. That has some of our best people working there. All the efforts that have been happening in recent years has been individual efforts, and even the Bishops' Conference does not have the benefit of well-researched position papers for the policy advocacy that it sometimes engages in. The Bishops' Conference, Justice and Peace, Caritas, and others, they need to receive well-researched documents on the various areas of society, on what is happening in the parliament, on what is happening with the executive, upon which they make their statements. Right now, I say not much is happening because by the time the bishops meet in next week, and then they come out with they come out with a statement, you will discover that it doesn't go far because it has not been preceded by thorough research work and networking. Networking from the office of the Bishop Conference that I'm talking about, from the kind of Catholic Bureau, networking with civil society organizations. I mean, on an individual level, I have collaborated with Femi Falana on a few projects, on a few issues of human rights. Now, imagine that the entire church has an office that is collaborating with people like him and with hundreds of other civil society organizations that are involved, that we share values with, that are involved in whether it is environmental issues or family issues, issues of abortion and gay rights, or they are involved in issues of the poor, what he mentioned about the rights of children to go to school. My own frustration, and I must say it here, my great frustration is that a lot of our leaders at all levels in the church, they don't know what is happening. They are not aware that the ground is being dug under our feet. They are not aware. People are, the emphasis is still on building big cathedrals, building big mission houses. We are not aware that, look, I mean, a video just went around about somebody who is telling his pastor to refund all the tithe he has been paying for years because he's no longer interested in going. Now, that is because there is an alienation between the leadership of churches and the poor people. I mean, Femi mentioned something that has been hurting me personally, and that is the phenomenon of palace priests. The phenomenon whereby governors have private chapels in their homes, president has private chapel, and they are paying salaries to the pastors and priests. How can the pastors and priests tell them the truth? So the phenomenon of palace priests, where the governor, instead of going to church to join the people of God to go to church and sit down like a parishioner in church, the governor or the president now hires a priest, rents a priest, and pays the priest. Now, that situation does not help at all. It will not help our situation, because instead of sitting down to listen to be chastised, to be corrected, he is the one. I mean, during Obasanjo's time, Obasanjo is the one that preaches in his own chapel. So that kind of situation does not help us at all. So once again, let me say that I have the material. In fact, if some of you are interested, I will send to the organizers the memo, the 4-page memorandum that I wrote to the Bishops' Conference on this matter in 2006, supported by the then president of the conference, Cardinal Onaiko. I will send you links to what happens in South Africa, what happens in Ghana, what happens in Berlin. I'll send you links to it. We have just lagged behind when it comes to structured lobby and advocacy intervention in the governance of our country. And so I end by saying what Bishop Kuka is doing in the Kuka Center, what I am doing in Luxtera is just to fill the gaps, but we know that it is not nowhere near what is needed for the Nigerian church. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father George. Sister Teresa, you had some unfinished points, so please come back to it. I think you are muted.
I have just unmuted myself.
Okay, oh, it's fine now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you. Yes, sister.
Hear me?
Yes.
I am unmuted, but can you hear me?
We are hearing you now.
Perhaps I like thinking in figures, I mean in images. What I am listening to, there is a need for progression. I'm thinking, for instance, the rights of the Jews, circumcision, he went through being presented in the temple, but after that he moved on and left that system behind. What I feel now is that perhaps we have reached a stage so much to that. What is the problem? Can you hear me?
Yeah, but sometimes it's
struggling.
So.
Maybe if you take off the video, because we are not here. I'm not here.
She may have to come back.
Your hand is up.
Sorry, I see your connection is sometimes weak. Yeah, so if you can take off the video, maybe it
might get better.
Yeah, okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Yeah.
What I am saying is that when they work with the system, you try to leave the system ahead and try to find something new. And I just gave example. I said Jesus went through circumcision, presentation in the temple, but after that he moved on and started something new. I'm sorry to say, with the building of a people, of a citizenry that knows that they own the country, that does not think of itself in terms of where you come from, north, south, east, west. Because they come from all over the different areas and they are moving on. And they may be like sheep without a shepherd that need the church to zero in on this energy of people. Since 1993, Nigeria has been praying for Nigeria in distress. When God comes in, God works outside the system. Jesus left Judea and Bethlehem and went and settled in the God-forsaken place. And then he was working with the youth. You know, you talk about he himself was a youth, Mary was a youth, Paul was a youth, Daniel was a youth, not to talk of David. And then the other thing is that these people have themselves that right now, you have this teeming youth from north to south. They need somebody to help them to galvanize that energy, to know that the nation belongs to them, to know that the policies, they just don't have.
Sister, sorry. Do you have a fan blowing in your space?
I do.
Oh, I think that's what
Okay.
is interfering. Sorry, if you can turn it off.
Okay.
It's interfering with your voice.
Maybe that is the problem.
Okay, you sound
better?
better now. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is we need to capture the energy that is there, which is a God-given energy, which only the church can gather. And if the other thing is that the church itself needs to put its acting, in order. I'm sorry to say this. We cannot be leaders like the politicians and yet hope to do something to transform the politicians, the current ones we have. So there is a homework to do. And what we need to do is to build the citizenry that owns the country, that can challenge, that can take part in the policies that are making. And Heerey, you are there. You have been telling us that the constitutions of the US is based on the Dominican something. You said that. So there is a need to do something new, not to try to patch the system. And the disobedient, it's not APC, it's not PDP, it's not Kwakwanshaw. This Labour Party just came out of nowhere and is catching Nigeria by storm. That is not neutral. So the church needs to, to work on that. And we need to be able to get the people to own and say, this is my country. You cannot run away with it. And I am not running away from it. And we join hands from north to south, from east to west, and forget about this geopolitical state and whatever. And because people talk about Nigeria, they say Nigerians are suffering with this money business. They say Nigerians are being cheated. So the Nigerian consciousness is there, which transcends ethnicity, religion, and all that. When it comes, you go have football club. People don't know whether you are Igbo or Ibibi or they want Nigeria to win. So we need to identify within the nation the God-given resources that are there, that we can fan into flame and use to transform to it, and even to evolve new policies. The other issue we mustn't forget is the influence from the outside, the West. I think somebody mentioned the last week I talked about, sex education and all this. The forces that come from outside to quench the fire within. That is where we could, the African Synod, Second African Synod said the church should be like the antenna, sensing dangers coming to the country. Where is that? We wrote it in the book. It is there. How many have read it? We should be, be able to sense the dangers and to be able to safeguard it and protect the nation. You build the high tower and you see, put the tower there, and as energies come, you destroy it. So this is it. I don't know how else to say it. The structure is the people. The people to first on is the people, and the resources are already there. And the church has, if it really believes in God and God working, to partner with God, partner with the youth, and be able to revamp the system, not just to patch it. I don't know whether my time is up or not, but
yeah. Thank you, sister.
Question time will come and we will pick it up. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there'll be Q&A and you can come back. So, Professor Adenike, you have additional contribution?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I think the issue about the church and the state is not something that we can exhaust, at any one discussion like this. I want to agree to some extent with some of the other speakers that the church is not doing enough, especially in trying to encourage people to be part and parcel of politics. Because if you don't take care of politics, politics will take care of you. And we find that the politics is actually taking care of the church in so many ways. And so right from the outset, right from the get-go, the church should encourage people to be part and parcel of partisan politics. But in such, like I said earlier on, if we have our own robust policy of forming people, then we'll be able to really mold them into citizens that would have a conscience, that would want to now do the best they can for the upliftment of the society. So there's a need right from, we own schools, the church owns schools. And from those schools, we could bring up citizens who will be involved in politics and who have been formed in such a way that they are, they are open-minded, that they are conscientized enough to know that when they get there, they should do the best and they should follow what is right and what is wrong, and leave out what is wrong. They should follow up, what will be for the common good, for the best interest of the people. And then even the schools that we have, some of those schools were taken over from us. What is the church doing? What has the church done over the years? This is one sore point that, each time we talk about this thing, especially with my husband, he feels so enraged that the church has done nothing to take part what rightly belongs to it, and which the state took over without, any record. Yes, we thank God there are some states that are, started giving back the schools to their owners, to the church, but how many are they? And where are they? In how many states is that happening? What in those states where it's not happening, what is the church in that state doing, or in those states, or even the church in Nigeria as a whole? What is it doing? Are we taking them to court? We've not tried that. And we know that that is also an option. So it's not only, at times advocacy, just speaking, to issues may not be enough. You may need to also go the extra mile to exercise your right and claim your rights, where you have such right. And then there's also the need for us as Nigerians. Sister Okure talked about Nigerians, seeing ourselves as Nigerians. Yes, there is a need for us as Nigerians to see ourselves as, a crop of people that need to be literate enough to know what is happening. A number of us do not know what is happening. We do not really have a literate citizenry. And even some of us who are educated, who have gone to schools, and all that, this doesn't mean that we are actually very educated or very literate. We don't even know what is happening. We don't know what those policies are. We don't know the extent to which these policies are infringing upon our rights. We don't know the ways in which we can, go out to defend, our rights and all that. So we need to also look at it that as citizens, each and every one of us has a duty to say that I must be literate enough, I must be interested enough in what is our.
Unmute yourself, ma. You've muted yourself.
Professor Emeka, I think you finished because you've muted yourself. Okay, maybe since the forum is still open. Let me.
Okay. Well, I think I've gotten it, that I muted myself. Okay, yes. Well, I don't know where. Can you please recall what I said last that was audible so that I know where to pick up from?
No, you were talking about the holding of citizenship, and then we need to be literate enough, yes. Literacy among the people.
Okay, thank you.
Across
so if we've gotten that, yes, if we've gotten that, I don't think I need to go back to that.
Okay.
The other thing that I want to also say is that there is need for cooperation even within the church. We have different denominations, and we are not even presenting a united front. The Christian Association of Nigeria doesn't seem to be representing everybody's views. And even at times we find that the Catholic Church is not taking part in what is going on in Cannes. For some, flimsy reasons that I would say, I'm sorry if, I'm using that, that terminology, but we need to engage even ourselves. We need to engage within ourselves in the church, so that we can present a united front to what is happening within the nation. So there's that need for cooperation. Let me just take a little time to talk about something that Father Ihusani or Mr. Falano's son, about palace phenomenon, where this the government houses have churches, a mosque and all that. To some extent, I agree, but to some extent, I also disagree. If that is what will help to bring the gospel to them, let's go there. Jesus went everywhere to ensure that he preaches and he takes to the people what they need to hear and what they need to know. The only thing that must happen is that if, for example, there's a church in a villa or in any state house, and the Catholic is being asked to bring somebody, the church in that place should ensure that she's sending a priest who is fearless, who will talk out. Send a George Ehusani, for example. Send a Kuka, for example, to such places. And I can tell you that it will not be, business as usual. It will not be that, because I'm there, I'm afraid to speak the truth. So we need to look for such people within the church and send them to those places. Because for as long as that is the policy for now, let us engage within it. And then with time, we can bring it out. And then maybe with time, when they keep hearing the truth fearlessly, from people who will fearlessly preach the truth, they may want to even be the people who would want to close down the place and say, we don't want to, to have it, because we know that what we may have been fearing, to hear, we are hearing them, pointedly, right, to our faces. So I think that we should not completely rule out, such things, because it can also be an avenue, of helping, to help bring a policy to bear. So I think we need to look at some of these issues and interface.
Thank you. Let me ask Mr. Falana if you have some remarks before the participants engage all four of you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes.
I have a couple of suggestions, but before I go to those suggestions, let me ask for caution in respect of the demand for return of schools and hospitals. It's so expensive now to run those institutions unlike those days, before 1976 when they were taken over. Today, to run a school to run a hospital successfully costs a lot of money. Hospitals in particular, where doctors are, to use the word Japan on a regular basis, to get doctors that will run hospitals now, it's not a dinner party. Therefore, when we are demanding for return of schools and the rest of them, what has happened to the few schools that have been returned? Because now you can't have a Catholic school where you are going to be asking students to pay, the secondary school students to pay ₦1 million, as is done now in most of the private schools. So please, let us be very, very careful with some of these demands. My suggestions are two. For me, in discussions of this nature, we must have some concrete suggestions that we can revisit. When else we are meeting, we can find out how far have we gone. Again, Professor Emeke, Denike Emeke, Prof. I don't think it's enough to encourage, and I think Reverend Sister Okure, it's not just enough to encourage Catholics to go to politics. What are they going to politics for? So if you are going to send people to represent the church, to represent a trend, you must give them some guidance. Everybody is going to government, takes an oath, swears to serve by the name of Almighty God. After 3 months, 6 months, do we have a way of recalling them to find out how far you have gone in living according to the teachings of Christ, even though you're in government? So it's not enough to say, oh, let our people go to politics, let them be part of what is going on. We must also draw a line of dichotomy between politicians who go to offices to line their pocket and politicians who go to serve. And unless we have some guidelines, almost like a social contract, you know, when you go there, what are you going to do? So it's not enough for the church. So we want people to know that so minister or commissioner is a member of our church. We recommend him, he becomes a knight. And that's the end of the matter. So at the end of the day, such people also join those who are looting the treasury. And so we haven't been able to draw a line of distinction between people of faith who go to politics and others. The last one, I've identified a number of my colleagues who are Catholics, who are lawyers, including some Reverend fathers and sisters. In fact, one is a senior advocate of Nigeria, a Reverend father. And I have challenged them. And for me, I think this is an area the church can make a maximum use of the services of such lawyers on a regular basis. Our people are harassed, arrested illegally, and detained, sometimes for months and years without trial. And we have lawyers in every parish in the country. It is possible for us today to suggest from here that henceforth, the lawyers in every parish should coordinate themselves and come together to attend to the needs of members of the church and members of their community, whereby the areas of the law that have recognized the rights of our people can be taught to know their rights under the law. And whenever any of our people is arrested illegally, we can task these lawyers, you know, to go out there and bail them. You need to know what our people are going through on a daily basis, particularly young people. Like today, Friday, arrests are being made all over the country. And people are being extorted, you know, even without, you know, in a poverty-stricken environment. So I suggest, therefore, that we should get our Catholic lawyers organized, and I'm sure other Christians may want to join them to see how in every community we can bail out of our people from unnecessary harassment, unnecessary intimidation, extrajudicial killings, and so on and so forth. Thank you very much, Father.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all the panelists. So now the floor is open for questions, clarifications. I see Francis Chiadi has his hands up. Francis, you have the mic.
Thank you very much. My question is, in our engagement with the other faiths, like Muslim.
Sorry, Francis. Francis, do you have another device open? Please shut down the another one. He said,
can you hear me now?
Devices open.
Yes, it's clear. You can speak.
Yes,
Okay.
like Muslim, they have the understanding that when we engage them in dialogue, we usually flag Nigeria as secular states. But from our discussion, it's obvious that we understand that Nigeria is a multi-religious state. And the impression they get when they hear secular states is that they understand secular state to mean the extreme secularism, which is not what we intend to communicate. So how do we hope to address this dissonance in dialogue?
The question is to the panelists, Attorney Falana or Father George.
Yeah, the issue of I collaborate very closely with Muslim partners. I have the Islamic Education Trust that we work with seriously. They don't like the idea of secular, but we use multi-religious society, and particularly quote the section of the Constitution, section 10, that says no state religion, and that we're a multi-religious society. Because what we understand here as secular, what they understand is irreligious, that we say the country is irreligious. No, but they accept multi-religious. So when I'm with my Muslim friends, I use multi-religious plural society rather than secular, because what secular means to them, and it is a whole cross-section of them, what secular often means to them is irreligious.
Sister Teresa, you have your hands up.
Yeah, and in addition to that, you know, this separation of church and state, as I said at the beginning, it is an imposition. It was something that happened in the West and they were trying to get out of, especially during the Reformation, and they bring it and we have incorporated it and we are owning it. But separation of church and state is not, of religion and life, is not the ethos of Africa. It certainly is not the ethos of scripture. So part of the things we need is to listen to what our language, the language we use, what is it conveying? If the language is the problem, then we change it. I mean, how can I'm an individual. How do I become, you know, both in the state and both in the church? When you divide me, what part of me belongs to the state and what part of me belongs to the church? You know, we can talk about being a secular state, but at the grassroots, at the bottom line, we're talking about individuals who have religious beliefs and who are, you know, who are Nigerians. Whether the religious belief is Muslim, Christian, Hindu, traditionalist, or what. So, but what binds us together is in Nigeria. So maybe we need to revisit the language, not just when we are dialoguing with Muslims, but about the language in which we describe ourselves. So that is my answer to that question. The secular state and the secular and the church, it doesn't rhyme. It is a foreign. It's an importation, if there's such a word, and it's an imposition. And maybe part of the newness we are looking for is to weed up these things that convey wrong impressions so that we can move on together.
Thank you, sister. I have 3 hands up. There's Charles DBA, there's Emmanuel, and then there is Father Chris O'Reilly. So let me start with the last one, Father Chris, and then Charles and Emmanuel. Father Chris, you have the floor. The three of you can ask one by one, then the panelists will take on one after the other. Father Chris, please unmute your phone.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
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 My question goes to San Femi Falana.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. I know you from Great Ife.
Oh, great.
Great Ife.
Great. 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 It's no longer Grisha.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your last suggestion. In my former parish at St. Paul, Oyibo, we have all our lawyers in the parish get together.
Very good.
But they have not gone to the extent of the job you are talking about, getting our people out of trouble. So maybe that's something they will get into later.
All right.
But my question to you is this. In your talk, you talked about the Nigerian Constitution, Section 10. No official religion to be adopted as a state religion.
Yeah.
My question is this. If the Bishops' Conference of Nigeria comes forward to say, we are supporting a particular presidential candidate, is it against the Nigerian Constitution? Or if the Bishops' Conference, the priests and the bishop were in the forefront of the riot we had, that they slaughtered the young people, is it against the Nigerian Constitution?
No.
In US here, we have what we call March for Life. Some bishops, some priests, some religious were in forefront leading those March for Life. When we do such things in Nigeria, when priests and religious and bishops lead, marches, peaceful marches, is it against our Constitution?
Thank you. Okay. Since that one is directed directly to Sam, please could you answer it quickly?
Yeah. I think the first point on the lawyers that have been assembled in Oyibo is perhaps we can link up with them after the program because like I'm trying to say, and I think Father Husani and myself have been having some discussions on the need for our people to know their rights under the Constitution, under the law, that nobody shall be detained, maybe in a place like Port Harcourt or Lagos or Abuja, beyond 24 hours. And if it's going to go beyond that, at the very most 48 hours, and if you are going to be detained beyond that, there must be a court order. But what the police do is to arrest people on Friday, so you are kept until Monday morning so that they will say, oh, the courts do not sit on Saturday and Sunday. But it's possible for lawyers to go to the police station, even over the weekend, and say, you must grant bail to my client, because bail is a right. It's not to be sold. So there are other rights we can discuss, it's not just for the lawyers to meet regularly. What are you meeting for? You must take on some assignment, some role in your community. It is not right, I can say this, it will not be right for the Catholic bishops, conference of bishops, to say we are adopting a particular candidate because it's a Catholic or another denomination. No, because there is also freedom of expression, freedom of choice, guaranteed by Section 38. I do not have to agree with the Catholic bishop with respect to the choice of a particular candidate. I may want to have my own candidate. So all the priest, what the Catholic bishop can insist on is that there must be a level playing ground for all the candidates. You must not put impossible hurdles before candidates. You must not monetize the electoral process. You must not dollarize party primaries. So such positions can be maintained without any ideological problems. But once the church adopts a candidate or two or three, there are problems. And that's the point I've made earlier. It's not just enough to say, oh, Femi Falana is one of us, is contesting election. You must give me a specific assignment. You must have a group of people that will interview the guy. What are you going to do in government? If after 3 months you betray the church, we have the right to either disown you or warn you, to fall in line, and come back to sanity. So that's the point I'm making. Yes, Bishop, there is no problem. The bishop, I think was it last year or the year before, there was a protest, peaceful march by the Catholic bishops, and that should happen in any civilized society. And I can tell you, it has taken a while to fight for the rights of our people to assemble peacefully. So we can enjoy that right. One, there is a matter of national importance. I mean, look at what is going on. It was just this afternoon, today, while he was addressing the Council of State, that the governor of the central bank said, admitted publicly, acknowledged today, that they haven't printed enough money. Meanwhile, you have been telling Nigeria, go to the banks and collect your money. We have given the banks money. And of course, he didn't disclose it, but from the information at my disposal, 2.7 trillion naira have been mopped up from Nigerians. All that has been printed is 300 billion naira. And this money has been captured by the same people they are trying to prevent, from making a mockery of all of us. So if Catholic bishops can come out with such a policy, if you haven't printed enough money, you must allow people to continue to use the old money together with the new money. However, your peg, your restriction can still remain, but you can't take my money and say I can't have more than 2,000 or 5,000, or you ask me to go and buy money from a POS, machine operator, who will now charge me, whereby the naira is rising against the naira in Nigeria today. So the bishops taking cognizance of the developments all over the country, complaints of the congregation, and come out with a common position. And that is the only way to get the church to be respected as it used to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Please, I'm going to have 3 people ask in a row. There is Brother Charles, and then Emmanuel Azike, and I see Sister Henrietta has been raising hands. So the 3 of you can ask the question, and then people will answer. Oh, there's another Emmanuel done. So Charles, Emmanuel Azike, Sister Henrietta, and then the other Charles. I haven't seen the last name. So 4 questions in a row. Please be brief and to the point. Father. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, Father.
Yes.
Yeah, my question goes like this. Yeah, our daddy, Falana, son, senior advocate of Nigeria, said the police arrest the citizen unlawfully on Friday. So I want to ask, where is that done? Because I've not seen that kind of scenario here in my locality. Then I want to equally ask about the taking over the schools from the government. Okay, I believe it was the missionaries that handed over the schools to the government. Then why are we taking it back again from the government again? Thank you.
Okay, Emmanuel Azike. You are muted.
Let him unmute himself.
Okay, Sister Henrietta.
Okay, hello. Can you hear me?
Okay,
yes, you can speak.
Okay, hi, good evening all. Just mine is a bit of a concern, especially that of the one raised by Father Eusani about particularly the church's leadership in Nigeria. I think for me, I've also had I've I don't know if Father Usani, for instance, is giving such an observation, particularly about the Catholic Bishop Conference, and then these policies and then issues raised, and then being to the that will benefit the church, particularly in Nigeria. But when it comes to implementation, then the bishops are nonchalant. What can be done? Is there a way around that? Is there a way forward? Because if, for instance, queuing from what Father courageously did, establishing the center he established, and that of the Kuka Center, that has been examples in this, that are setting the pace in these areas, these interventions that they've been able to do. How about individuals that might want to be able to do something, but are not able to establish that individually, owing to the constraints that might arise financially, for instance, and otherwise? So my challenge is, my question particularly, if Father can respond, being that he was once secretary of the CBCN, what is there a way that the bishops can possibly be conscientized, or what can be done about these issues that they are sometimes very serious but they're very nonchalant about? Thank you.
Okay, so we'll continue taking questions. Since they are directed to individuals, they'll come to it. Sister Henrietta, and then Father Manuel Azike.
Thank you very much, Father. I'm really happy I've listened to these presentations this evening. Very rich and very thought-provoking. You know, I have several questions, but I'll just ask two. One, where are we going with this discussion? Very rich, very powerful. Where should we be going with it? Then secondly, about the bureau, the church bureau in Europe and America. What impact today the Catholic bureaus in Europe, in America, what impact today are they having in those different places? Are they having in the policies in their different countries today? Perhaps in the past, today, what impact are they actually having in the policies of their states?
Thank you. And lastly, Father Manuel Azike.
Thank you, Brother Anedi. I listened to Father Ehusani and the others. First of all, the Catholic and schools. My first question is, the schools that the government has given back to the Catholic Church, what has the Catholic Church done with it? That's my first question. And how many poor people in Nigeria today can proudly say, I'm enjoying Catholic education today? How many poor people? Again, I think it was Father Husani who talked about the most kept secret in the Catholic Church. My question is, how has the church encouraged lay people to delve into theology as to the point of being lecturers in the seminary schools? Again, the bishops we are talking about that are the said leaders of the Catholic Church, they come from society, they go through seminary. How do we begin to impart leadership knowledge from the seminary until they become bishop, whoever becomes a bishop? Because you are not taught how to lead when you become a bishop. Again, whatever we do as human beings is rooted in our worldviews. How do we begin to deconstruct and reconstruct our worldviews, our mental models? How do we begin to do that?
Thank you. And lastly, before the panelists, Linda.
Good evening, Father. Thank you very much. Actually, Linda is coming up, but it's John Omoshiki that is talking. Okay. My device is down, so I have to use my wife's phone to join the it has been quite enriching, and I've actually learned a lot from this discussion so far. But I have some concerns. Number one, when Femi Falana was talking, he said that what is going to be our take home from this section. And now that's now triggered a thought that, do we have any of the media houses covering this section so that this enriching section can be known out there, outside the present, those of us within this call? That is, if it is not, subsequently, how can we make these to be known to the general public? That's number one. Then number two, we're talking about the church and the state. If we look inward, if we say we want to make our voice known, we want to come into the bureaucratic system of having a logical bureaucracy dialogue with the state. If we should look inward, we will discover that even within the church, between the priest and the members of the church, we can see clearly that there is to some certain extent where you see a priest actually taking ride over the parishioners because they do not know what the canon law says, what the CCC is teaching, and we see priests that will be played upon the influence of the members of the church because they are not actually equipped with the knowledge of the church. If we want to go out there to make the change, first of all, we have to look inward. We have, what are the modalities that we are bringing in so that even the members of the church can be well rooted first in rules, the teachings of the church, before we even talked about the state. That's just my concern. Then lastly, when Father George Jerusalem was talking about those countries that have actually set up the outfit of to create bureaucratic offices and all that, immediately they share the link. Immediately I browse it. I discovered that one of those things that they put that with the Ghana own that he shared, Nigeria name was actually was mentioned among those countries in Africa that have created such office. So I want to find out, is it that the Catholic Church in Ghana are not aware that such office is not yet established in Nigeria, or it was an oversight or an assumption from their side? Thank you very much, Father.
Yes, please, I'm begging indulgence from the panelists. I see a lot of hands up. I'm taking note of where the questions are directed. Okay, I'm going to be militant now. Two last questions, and then we go to the panelists. Sister Eucharia, and then I saw John Dubisi. Sister Eucharia, you have the mic.
Actually, I was going to withdraw from asking a question, but I didn't know how to do it.
Okay.
The last person has almost come to the point. You know, all this discussion we have been having, we keep saying the church, the church, the church, as if we are not the church. You know, and my question is, what can we, the church, do? Not what the bishops are doing. Father Husani and, you know, we have heard those who have done something. What can we do? Because if we continue to sit down and wait for the bishops to do something or to create a bureau, whatever, I don't think. So who are we? We are the church. I just beginning to feel that what is happening in Nigeria should happen in the church. You know, take over the church. The church is ours. It's not the bishops. Anyway, sorry for saying that. But I think my question is for us to go back and say, what am I going to do? We can do advocacy. without the church. I know somebody like Father Lusani did it I still remember his story of one man advocacy when he was in school. And I believe we can all do it. And I know there are organizations that have done it in Nigeria and they succeeded. How do we look out for those organizations and see if we can partner with them, go in with them, because we are the church, not the bishops. Until while we are waiting for them to create the bureaucracy or whatever bureau, what can we do?
Okay, thank you. And lastly, John.
Okay, just straight to the point. My question is, compared to the Muslims, where once the Sultan in Sokoto speaks, he can confidently say he has spoken on behalf of all Muslims in Nigeria. Do we really have a united view for the church in Nigeria? Can we really say that once the Catholic Bishop Conference speaks, they have spoken the minds of all Nigerians? Thank you.
It's time for the panelists. I know Professor Emeka has been having her hands up, so I start with you.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I didn't even know that my hand is up. Yes, let me start by addressing the one asked by Emmanuel on takeover of schools. That is the missionaries, that handed over the schools. That is not true. It is not the missionaries that handed over the schools to the government.
They were acquired.
It is the government that took over schools from faith-based organizations, from the Catholic Church, from the Muslim, some other faith-based organizations. So it is not the missionaries. And I said that there is a need for us to fight back and get back our schools. And I still stand by it. Yes, my co-panelist, Isefemi Falana-Osan, did say that there's need for caution, and all that. Yes, I agree. There may be a need for caution, but that is not to say that we cannot run those schools. We can run the schools. There are strategies that can be put in place. There are people who are interested in helping, to have when the schools are taken back, to see that the schools are, run well. For example, in the Archdiocese of Ibadan, we had something recently where it was made known to us that the church in the Archdiocese is prepared to have our schools back. And there are efforts that are already in place. Even priests are being sent to go into education, to study education, so that even if when the schools are taken back, the need for, do we have a competent person as well? And we also have lay people who are in the field of education. So we have enough of people who can run, who can be at the helm of affairs, who can run the schools. And somebody asked about the schools that have been, given back. What has become of the schools? A lot has become of the schools. Yes, okay. A number of the places, I know of Ijebu-Ode Diocese, where the schools, some of the schools have been taken over. And you can see the difference between what it was and what it is now. And of course, there's an understanding that it will be a gradual process. There'll be a phasing out, of those who were there when government had the school, and those who will be there when the church has taken back, the school, and then running it in its own way. Somebody else, I link it to another question that was asked by another person, that, how many people are enjoying, education that is not costly within the Catholic Church. Again, I'll draw example from the Catholic Archdiocese of Ibadan, because I'm involved, as the chair of the governing body for the Catholic schools in the Archdiocese, to say that there is a lot that is going on. We are not in our schools in the Archdiocese, and the proprietor of the school, the Archbishop, is encouraging that school, fees are not exorbitantly charged. It's not exorbitant fees that are charged. In fact, in some of those schools, the bishop is subsidizing what is going on, the salary of teachers, the erection of structures, and all that. And if you go to our schools, you find that the charges are so minimal that nobody can say that they really cannot afford, what is being charged. So there's a lot that is being done to ensure that education
given, are made available to those who are, not able to afford it. And when you even talk about people not being able to afford, the payment of fees, and all that, you find that it's actually not really true. Some of these people that you think are not able to pay are the same set of people that you find getting involved in Ashwebi, uniform, things, and they're getting involved in all sorts of social activities, on weekends, and they will neglect the education of their children. So there's still that need for us to conscientize people to know the value, of education, to know the value of what they can have, for their children. So there's a need, for us to be involved in that. So the Catholic Church, is doing a lot. And I totally agree with I don't remember her name. We're saying, who is the church? We are the church. I agree with that. And I said that even as part of my opening remarks. We are the church. And there's a need for us to see ourselves as people who will be involved in what is going on, will be involved in, looking into the policies that are being made, reading them, understanding them, speaking about them, and then, putting in all that we can to ensure that at our own root level, and we don't have to start at the top level alone. We can start at the grassroots level where we are. When we make changes at our level, then this will have a spiral effect, on what we go on. And then we should collaborate with people, and with organizations that are doing, that are doing a lot to also help to see that, things are being, properly done, and policies that are good are being formulated, and these ones are also being properly implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sister Teresa, I saw your hands up. And then after Teresa.
Sorry. Are you calling me, or is it another Teresa?
No, Sister Teresa, yeah, I'm talking to the panelists now, from now on.
So what are we in the process? I mean, I think is this a rounding?
No,
up,
okay, no, I thought you had your hands up. Okay, let me go. There are two questions.
But I was just wondering because I'm kind of, yeah.
Okay, no, not there yet.
What if I may just say this? Let us not get, I don't know how to say it, too much. Where do we go from? This question of handing over schools, we have flogged it. How do we move forward? We're talking about how we educate people. Part of our problem is that we feel, unless it is in the schools, people are not educated. The families, that's where what life begins. Every child, when I hear all these bandits, kidnappers, my question is, where are the parents? Where is the family? That's a much neglected area. And even the people who are married, a much neglected area. So Judaism survived all the religions because it was the religion of the family. Teach your children's children to the third and fourth generation. Wherever they went, whether it was Babylonia or Assyria, they were well educated and they owned it. But if we are just waiting for schools, for structures, for what we build, majority are not going to be there. But if we're talking about families, everybody is there. Everybody is there, whether it's like a natural family or adopted family. So what we need to do is identify the units in which this teaching can be carried on. I keep asking myself, this youth, like the NSAS, who was organizing them? How did it come about? Disobedience and the way they are connecting, they are teaching each other, the means of communication, much more. It's not happening in the schools. And they are passing the message along. And the same with the bandits. So if we get hooked onto the schools and they are not there and they are not, the majority is not done. There's no question of this, that poor people just can't afford our schools. I have examples. But if we are focusing on that, we are not going to do this thing you're talking about. The church is each of us. And the other thing I want to say, we cannot think in a divisive mind for a unified result. Why am I saying that? For instance, we're talking about, if we said, let's organize the Catholics, we need to find structures, groups in which we can work collaboratively for the common good, which is the nation Nigeria. And that is what disobedient people are doing. I don't think they are talking about their religion or their this and that. There is something bigger than their religion. And what is bigger than their religion is the Nigerian liberation. So I think that we as church need to be on that. These people we are talking about are church. We're talking about CBCN is meeting or is starting to meet as we are talking now. They have communiques. Who reads it? What is the follow-up of those communiques to make sure that even people hear it, talk alone about acting upon it? So please, I'm just begging us. I'm begging us to. I don't know what to. That's my response to the discussion that has just been. Just been concluded. It's important. It's true, all right. But can we move beyond that too? Jesus went to the masses. He taught them. He instructed them, and the revolution started there.
Okay. Thank you.
The revolution started there.
Thank you. Mr. Falana, a senior advocate, there were two questions directed to you, and one of them was the question of arrest. Young man said he never knew of people being arrested at the weekend.
Where is his place, if I may know? Anyway, thank you very much.
Delta. Yes, sir.
Where is your place, Charles?
My experience from Delta is that just like any other part of Nigeria, we have a lot of incessant arrests by the police. And after the program, we can have a discussion on this, you know. But what I mean is that, you know, on a weekly basis, we have reports, and I filed reports today from Akure, from Oka, you know, Katsina. People are arrested this afternoon, and you can be very sure nobody is going to take them to court until Monday. After the killing of a lawyer. Hello?
I said that is a lawful arrest in Nigeria.
After the brutal killing of a lawyer in December in Lagos, and the whole society rose up. I did make the point that it was because she was a lawyer. After that, 2 young people have been killed in Anambra, tortured to death. One of them, the parents was asked to go and bring 150,000 naira they were negotiating. By the time the parents raised the money, they got to the police station. He had been tortured to death, 2 of them. The same thing happened, I think, in Duwada, in Katsina. Between December and now, over 15 other Nigerians have been killed by the police, sometimes for 100 naira on the road, you know. So we have this very reckless abuse of human rights in our country. And it's only if we work together that we can stop
the situation in Uniben with the soldiers and the students.
Yeah, you saw what happened with the soldiers in Uniben. As far as they were concerned, that's over. But we are taking it up. I'll be contacted by the management of the university, you know, because this is what happens in our country every day. And I tell people, most Nigerians do not know why the police kill so recklessly. It is because they have lost confidence in the courts.
Interesting.
Okay, sir. Sir, please, how can someone...
Thank you. Okay, Charles, please, let's move on. Okay. Please, Father Husani, there were a few questions thrown at you. One by, you know, Sister Henrietta, and another wanting to know more.
If there is an execution in the prison, after the incident, the people who are done the killing will have to be taken through some rehabilitation, because it's not normal for a human being to kill. But once the policemen kill people in their stations, torture them to death, it becomes part of them. And so at the slightest provocation, they kill people in town. So this is the problem with the police. On taking over of school, Muslim, well, it's not quite true that you have only one Islamic faith. I mean, yes, one Islamic faith, but you also have the Sunnis and the Shiites. And they hardly see eye to eye, you know. On schools, let me just say this. On schools. Yes, I have no problem for demand for return of school, but please be prepared to run them. Also be prepared to ask for a grant from the government, because we can't just go on all of us taking over the responsibilities of government. We build our own boreholes, we have our own telephones, we have our own roads, we have our security in our estate and the rest of it. At the end of the day, the government is not committed. So there's so much money to steal by the government because we have taken over the responsibilities of the government. Final point, please. The Pope was in Africa last week. The Pope visited the richest country in Africa, and that is the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Yet, it is the most dehumanized part of the continent, the most exploited part of the continent. And the message of the Pope to Africa is that we must rise up to fight economic imperialism. It's happening in our country. IMF, World Bank dictate what our government should do, how to sack people in employment, how to reduce workforce, and so on and so forth. And so for us as Africans, we must take that message from the Pope very seriously. How do we fight economic imperialism that promotes poverty in the continent? Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. And, Father Husani, there were a couple of questions directed at you, so please.
Yes. Yes, one is that the church, I mean, this is in response briefly to Professor Emeke Adenike, the church does have a policy for the formation of people for public life and for the formation of Catholics to live responsible civic lives. In fact, even the adult catechism, the catechism of the Catholic Church, has an elaborate section on the social teachings of the church that deal with all this. And in the last 25, 30 years, a lot has been written. There are curricula that have been prepared on training people from primary school to university level on the social teachings of the church. So if the priest where you are is not using those resources, it is not that the church does not have a policy, not only a policy, but even a curriculum for teaching people. Like I said, I wrote a textbook on that in 1996. I call it the Prophetic Church. And a number of people, priests, read it in the seminaries and used it for trade. They use it for training. Most seminaries had it as a textbook. There are many others that have been produced. The Catholic Institute of Justice and Peace in Enugu, under Monsignor Obiora, they produce a lot of resources. Under John Patrick Ngoi in Ijebu, they produce a lot of resources. So a lot has been done. It's just that if people are not using these resources or using these opportunities provided, it is because they are not doing their work, not because the policy does not exist. Now, I agree with Femi that we do have a right to take some of our schools back, and we do have a right to ask for grant aiding. When the schools worked, I mean, the younger people who do not know, when the schools worked and poor people were able to go to school paying little, it is because in many states of Nigeria, the government paid the teachers. The government built some infrastructure and the church managed the schools. So it is not that, I mean, how will a church manage a secondary school or a university today and let people pay 20,000 naira as annual school fees? It's not possible. But if there is grant aiding, which Femi said we should ask for, and we have a right to ask for it, every Nigerian child is entitled to a certain level of education, part of which should be paid for by government. So even if the child decides to come to St. Joseph's primary school, the child is entitled to some subvention from government, and it is part of what we should be advocating for. Next is how does the church encourage lay people to be involved in theology? I think for many years, a number of institutes in the church have been training lay people. SIWA, Catholic Institute of Western Africa, for example, they have a lot of programs that lay people are taking. I mean, Sister Okure is here. They have been teaching lay people. There are other institutes across the land that are teaching people theology. So you don't have to be a priest to go to SIWA to learn theology. You don't have to be a priest to go to Veritas University and a number of other Catholic universities, Godfrey Okoye University, I'm sure Dominican University. You don't have to be a reverend sister or a priest to go there and do theology. So it may require a lot more campaign for people to recognize that they are welcome to these places to learn. Then I like the emphasis on what am I going to do that Sister Madweke brought. Each one of us is encouraged to see what you can do within your sphere of influence. The things that I am doing right now, the Luke Sterile Leadership Foundation, my foundation, is involved in pre-election sensitization against violence in Imo State, in Anambra State, in Ebonyi State, in Kogi State, and in Kaduna State. I have mobilized people to go to those places and meet with stakeholders.
I started it with Dr. Inya.
Charles, please mute yourself. Charles Dibia, thank you.
So we are involved in this, and this is at our own little level as Luke Stera, at my own level. So there is something that each person can do. In fact, at our chapel in Luke Stera, we challenge people. What are you doing in your constituency? How are you in touch with your constituency to ensure that there is no pre-election or post-election violence? We are challenging each person to be in touch with their local constituencies to ensure that there is peace. That's a lot that individuals can do on their own. Now, I join Femi Fatma in saying that the truth is that the Muslims are not as united as many of us think. They are highly divided. Right now, the Sultan of Sokoto takes a number of positions and many Muslims ignore it. In fact, the last Ramadan, the Sultan of Sokoto announced the day when they should have their Salah, and a number of people decided to have their Salah a day before because they don't reckon with the Sultan of Sokoto. So the real truth is that that unity that we don't have, they also don't have. It may not be as affluent as our own. Finally, in 2017, the Jesuits, in collaboration with a German agency, held a workshop in Nairobi at the Hekima College on Catholic social teachings in Africa. How far have we succeeded in disseminating Catholic social teachings in Africa after more than 100 years of Christianity? I was one of the speakers at that conference, and we came to realize that in spite of all our efforts, a lot of African countries have been led by Christians and by Catholics, including Mobutu Sese Seko and Mugabe and all those. Somehow we did not quite succeed in making them go there as Christians with the light of Christ with them, which is what Femi Falana was saying, that it is not just that we encourage Catholics to go into office. What kind of mandates do we give them? And what kind of mechanisms do we have to call them to order if after 1 year, after 6 months or 3 months, if they are not doing well? These are things that we need to begin to walk about, which is why I talked about the need to have a structure. Now, finally, somebody asked about the Catholic Bureau, where it is working. I didn't mention America. I mentioned Germany and a number of African countries, including South Africa and so on and so forth. Now, what they have been doing is there on record. If you go to the links that I have posted, you go to the links and see what they have been doing. Perhaps things would have been a lot worse in those countries if the Catholic Bureau in those countries have not been, and we're talking of, in Germany, it has been on for 70 years, almost 70 years. In South Africa, it has been on for 25 years. They have been doing a lot. And if you just Google their site and you will see what they are doing. Right now, we're not able to do much because individual bishops and individual priests are just trying their best, but there is no structure of intervention. By the structure of intervention, I mean that in South Africa, the parliamentary liaison officer, who is a priest, is in the parliament, officially recognized to have an observer seat in the parliament, and is watching the law processes, lawmaking processes, and is making interventions, calling Christians and Catholic legislators and helping them to know that this thing they are bringing will not be good for us. We object to it. And some of the legislations are shut down at that level. So a lot is able to, we are able to achieve a lot with such a structure, which we don't have right now. Now, as for perhaps each idea has its own time. Maybe the time was not ripe when in 2006 I pushed it. Perhaps sometime in future they will still need it, because right now, I mean, to get to a point where we have people, individuals like Father Mbaka became, the Nigerians began to see him as the voice of the church. That was unfortunate. And that is because there is no office that speaks for the church in social political matters, in matters of policy and so on. Let me rest my case here and say that I will send documents related to this to the organizers, which they can send to the participants to know what we are talking about and what is possible with such an office. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Let me make some housekeeping stuff here. You know, the question has been asked, as Sister Teresa brought it up, many people brought it up. What next? What next? As a starting point, please, we don't want this group to scatter. You know, there's one of my favorite African proverbs coming from Ethiopia is, when spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. I see a lot of talents here tonight, from my own end. Please, there is a link in the chat box. You can click, and from the organizer, please click it and send and enter your information so that he can send the messages so that we can make contribution on that forum. That's number one. So please do that. And number two, what next before we close? Or maybe we can contribute things in that forum. I don't know how long many of you are going to stay. I know for some of us it's already getting to 10, while for others it's still midday. So if you can contribute, what next? It is important that we don't let this die out. And again, you know, I really hope that we collectively, even as a group, can do something, you know, that it doesn't end here. I have been actually, I've been blessed to have led even a group of sisters to protest, you know, at the National Assembly in Edo State, in many places, and there have been results. You know, we've done that. So I think, please, let this not die. I'm begging you to try to clear that link so that the organizer can have your contact information and ensure that we get back to you. We get back to, you know, to what next? That's really the issue here. What next? What can we do as a group? While things are happening here, what can we do? And if any of the panelists has a last, okay, I know, Ms. Falana, are you trying to say something? I see your stuff is coming up. Okay, Sister Teresa, I see your hand up.
Yes, I also have something to say.
Okay, please, briefly. Yes, Sister Teresa.
No, I guess what I want to say is that perhaps we need 2 plans of action. One is meeting the immediate need, but we need a long-term planning.
Sorry, we are not hearing you, sister. Immediate and long term, we haven't heard you. Okay, in the meantime, Professor Meke,
send them with what do they go in with? And it's not going to be when they are in politics. The education has to start when they are born. So what I mean is that we do need that. And, you know, educate for citizenship. And all these bandits, God didn't make them to be wicked. What do we do to penetrate that darkness? It is if we are just going forward with a we versus them, or them versus us, we are not going to go very far. And most of these people we are talking about, they are victims of the people who are using them to destabilize the country, and we are clapping for the destabilizers because they are big guys there. So the situation is very complex, but we need our policies, whatever we do, needs to address that. We need to bring the families on board. We need to see what we do to help people. We need a human revolution. Maybe that's what I'm struggling to say. We have a technological, we have got the industrial revolution. This is the point for the human revolution. And that is not going to happen in the books, in the institutions. It's going to happen where the human beings are. That's what I want to say. And we're talking about policy in the way we got so much. So concretely, what are we saying about the church and policies at this point? But the church and policies at this point is very different from the church being the political, not in terms of playing politics, but being the mover whereby people can think right, not because they're Catholics or they're but because they're human beings. I'm struggling with that. I don't know whether I have an answer, but I think we can look like this, but we need to go to the roots of the problem and see what we do as a long-term solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mr. Falana.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to start by correcting an impression that I got from the response, of Father George Ehusani. I don't know where the misunderstanding came, because he said he was responding to what I said, that the church has its social teachings, and all that, trying to sorry. Yeah, because I don't, like I said, I don't know where that misconception came from. I never said that the church doesn't have its teachings on social, have something on Catholic social teachings. If anything, I said that the church has, and that we need to key into that. We need to read some of those things. We need to understand them. We need to engage with them. And we need to engage with one another, even at our different levels. And I'm also saying, as part of a takeaway from this discussion tonight, that let's stop looking only at the top level. Let's also start from the grassroots. Let's start within ourselves, in our various churches, in our various parishes, in our various societies, in our various communities. Let's do something within ourselves. Let's engage ourselves in dialogue. Let's begin to push forward. How do we do some of these things? What can we do as a group? What can we do at our level? Because at our level, there a lot is happening that is not right. And if we start correcting from the grassroots level, like I said earlier on, it will have a spiral effect that will now go to the top. And then if we all keep engaging at various levels, because again, we belong to various, we engage at various levels. Yes, some of us are at the parish level or at our community level. Some of us are also involved, at other levels that are, within the state. Other levels that are national. And so if we start from the grassroots, we move on to the state level, we move on to the national, we move on to the international. And there we can begin to, engage with policies and also make input into how these policies can be, better implemented. Also, I like to say that we need, I re-emphasize that we need a literate citizen. We need to be literate. We need to be involved. We need to understand. We need to know. We need to read. And when we do some of these things, we'll be able to see what we can do. Some of us are also involved in things that are, being done at various. For example, I was involved last year and 2 years ago with the JDPC in Ondo State, where we drafted something on human rights. And this issue of which Mr. Falana or SAN had mentioned, police detaining people, keeping them in custody, which is not right, beyond maximum of 48 hours. I was involved with something that we drafted there, and it's had the state assent, at the end of it, though it was sponsored by Miserio, but it's still something that is being done at a level where we are trying to penetrate into what is happening at the state level and at national level. And then also peaceful, somebody talked about peaceful marches, I think it's Father Orayeli, also last year or so, or 2 years ago, here in Ibadan, we had that kind of protest led by our Archbishop, and we went to the Secretariat and we delivered a letter. But you can say, yes, do all those. What is done with them? Yes, something drastic may not be done with them, but the effort has been made. One, the impact has been made. Two, the awareness has been created that you cannot just do anything you like. It cannot be business as usual. People are watching you, government. People are involved, and are saying, no, we cannot continue with this kind of thing. And so, well, let's continue like that. And one day, there'll be something that will be positive that would come out of our efforts. Let's not be discouraged. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Okay, the last word, Mr. Falana has been having his hand up. So you have the last word.
Thank you very much. Mine is by way of information, particularly for adherence of return of schools to the church. I just wish to say that in each of our states, including Abuja, the Child Rights Act, which has been adopted by all the states, as well as Universal Basic Education Law, has prescribed that every child shall be given free and compulsory education from primary to junior secondary school. So if you are interested in taking over the schools, we must get government to be responsible for training and educating students at the public expense from we are interested in secondary school, junior secondary school, so that the church will only take care of senior secondary school. That's what the law says. And if there is any problem with that, we may be able to challenge the government to be responsible legally. The last point, Madam Prof, yes, you are right. Influence on the grassroots can go up with profound respect, ma. Society is generally built from the top. What I mean is that, and I think it was Karl Marx that made the point, the ideas of the ruling class are the prevailing ideas in any historical epoch. While we're insisting, challenging the Conference of Catholic Bishops, is that they are in charge of the church and their influence will percolate, down the grassroots and not the other way around. It's like the home. You don't ask the children to teach the parents. It's the other way around, So let's not do it like Buhari top to bottom or bottom to top, So let's insist that our leaders lead us aright, which is like our own political situation too. We must get credible people to lead the country, and their influence will have positive impact on the society. Thank you very much for this opportunity to cross-fertilize ideas with you.
Thank you very much. I think we'll end there. I am most grateful to all of you, and in particular to the panelists. Thank you, Professor Adenike Emeka. Thank you, Senior Advocate Femi Falana. Thank you, Sister Professor Teresa Okure. And thank you, Father George Ehusani. You have all enlightened us in so many ways. And please send your information to the organizer. We want to reach out to you. We want to make this a movement that you've been talking about so that we can make a difference in our own way that we can. So I now hand over the mic to the organizer, Brother Fred Obanaya.
Okay. Thank you very much, Father Anyedi Okure, for moderating this section. I also want to thank the panelists for your active participation and the enriching contributions that you have made so far. And I also want to thank all of us gathered here for coming here to participate in this discussion. It's been so enriching, I must say, and I thank the good Lord who has made this program successful. I want to make some few points before we leave, because continuously the whole idea of having an immediate plan or to do something that is immediate and a long-term plan has been occurring in the whole of the discussion. For the immediate plan, I would just, as I have already opened a WhatsApp group, and the link has been posted on the chats section. And I would encourage everybody to please click on it and become a member of that group. That is where we will now put our minds together and see how we'll be able to do some things to achieve what we have discussed so far. Secondly, I would also beg that I will still reach out to some people, Father Husani and Most Reverend Bishop Kuka. Bishop Kuka would have been here too, but he told me through our discussions that he will be on transit, so that he will not be able to make it to this discussion. If not, he would have been here too. So I would also get in touch with him to see how we'll be able to put minds together to push this very action of having an observer at the house. So we'll see how we'll do that. And I also beg Father Anyedi Okure, I know you have been doing this in other countries. So now it's our turn, it's our country. So I would also ask that you throw your weight, you throw your weight solidly behind us as we do this. So I will still open a small group where we will discuss and you see how to do this. I will also want Sir Femi Falana to be involved in this, so that what we are doing will not be something that is outside the constitutional arrangement of our country. Then thirdly, I would say that this group basically is interested in political education. So with this, it takes care of what we're talking about, sensitizing the citizens, to know their rights and what they ought to do to see that we better our society. So it's an ongoing discussion. So as we have picked this team, we'll try to see how we'll make it to bear in reality, how we are going to make it to, to concretize this idea to see that we solve a problem, from what we have discussed so far. So, and that is why we are forming that group that will help us to achieve this very purpose. So I thank all of us once again for making out time to participate. The panelists, Sir Femi Falana, Professor Sister Theresa Okure, Professor Adenike Emeke, and Reverend Father Dr. George Ehusani. I thank you so much. It was not easy getting you people to participate, but I must say that the whole call and reaching out, it's a very good one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So with this, okay. So with this, I think we have come to the end of this section. We'll be holding not quite long. Immediately after the elections, we'll hold another brief section where we'll discuss about consolidating democracy and the 2023 elections. So we will, okay, Father wants to say something, okay?
No, I just want to throw in there that there has been a discussion from the organizing committee about an ongoing citizenship education.
Yes.
So I was very glad to hear that all the panelists brought up that point. So that's something for you to think about.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So we will get back to us through the WhatsApp group to tell us our next topic and then what we'll be discussing, to see that we'll discuss this very idea and see how we'll make it to bear on reality towards solving the issues in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So with this, we come to the end of this section. Thank you for waiting patiently to see the end of this section. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless.
Bye.
Yeah, good night, good afternoon, good morning.